Hello and welcome to lesson 16 of the Learning Guitar series. As you can see, this time I don't have a guitar with me, and the reason for that is because we're discussing harmony and theory. What we'll discuss over time, this is not going to be the only lesson for harmony and theory, but this strictly applies to what we've done so far. So not only will explain you even better what we've done and why it's done in a certain way, but it will also lay the foundation on what's to come, so you clearly understand how things are done. So first thing I'm going to show you is these charts. I suggest if you have let's say a practice area, a place where you practice or something, you can actually print them out, maybe put them in a folder or something, so you can consult it when you need it, some sort of diary. The first thing you might want to print out is actually this particular chart. This is a very simple chart. It's a chromatic scale in 12 keys, okay? And when I say 12 keys, actually you notice here is more than 12, but just because I wrote C sharp and D flat, for example, or D sharp and E flat, because maybe sometimes you're analyzing a song that you want to play and maybe play a solo on top of it. Sometimes it's written in C sharp, so you have the rest of the chromatic scale in that key, or sometimes it's written in D flat, so that you don't get confused. Let's put it that way. So here you have your root note and the rest of the scale. So these are all the 12 notes in a diatonic scale. This is, a chromatic scale. And above it, you'll have the possible name for the interval, okay, in relation to the root note, of course. From C perspective, C sharp would be a flat 2 or a flat 9, depending on which octave we're looking at. D would be a second or a ninth, D sharp would be a flat 3 or a sharp 9, E would be a third, F is a 4 for an 11th, and so forth and so on. And of course here, like we discussed in lesson 1 of this series, just a reference, so chord families, so that you understand that a major chord basically is as such because it contains 1, 3, 5 in a particular key. Minor is 1, flat 3 and 5, dominant 7 is 1, 3, 5, flat 7, half diminished is 1, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7, diminished is 1, flat 3, flat 5. Here I wrote 6. Academically, this would be a double flat 7. Augmented chords would be 1, 3, sharp 5. Suspended 2 or 9 is 1, 2, 5. Sus 4 would be, or sus 11, 1, 4, 5. What does this mean? Well, it means that, let's say that I want to create a C major chord. I need the root, so I need 1. I need the third, and if I look at the chromatic scale, the third is an E note here. And I need a fifth, and that would be G. A flat minor. So A flat, then I need a flat 3, and the flat 3 for A flat would be B, and the fifth for A flat would be E flat. Now let's go back to our second chart. So this one, maybe print it out. You don't have to memorize all this. Just print it out as a reference. This is what we're going to discuss today. Diatonic scales, basically Ionian scale, what you just did, okay, in the first 15 lessons. And we're going to harmonize them to get chords out of them. And I'm going to show you exactly what the process is, so you understand how we got to this chart. So here I just wrote I have an Excel spreadsheet. What I'm going to write on it is, since we've done most of our lessons in G, I'm going to write a G Ionian scale, okay? And that would be G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and we are at the octave. In this case, I'm actually going to write 2 octaves of it, okay? So again, G, A, B, C, C, D, E, and F sharp, and we're back to G, okay? Chords are constructed by stacking intervals of thirds. What does that mean in layman terms? Well, let's take a G. Let's start from G. And the interval in between G and A is a second, and the interval in between G and B is a third. Okay? So, in other words, what I'm going to do vertically now here, I'm going to play a note, skip 1, play a note, skip 1, play a note, because the relation, the interval in between B and D is also a third. So I'm actually stacking them. So from G, I'm going to write B. Then from B, I'm gonna write D. From D, I'm gonna write F sharp. From F sharp, we're going to A. That's why I wrote 2 octaves, just so that you can see how these passages goes over 2 octaves. So from F sharp, we have A. From A, we go to C. From C, we go to E. And from E, we're back to G, okay? Now, what's the relationship in between these notes? Which is pretty much the point. Once you understand this, everything is gonna kind of makes a lot of sense for you. Actually, I'm gonna make this in a color, okay? So let's maybe this yellow, right? And that's when the other chart comes in. What we're looking at, if this is the root note, so if this is number 1, okay? What is this note from the perspective of G? Let's have a look at the chart. So, if G is number 1, what is B? Well, B is a third. So that's a third. Now, what is D from the perspective of G? So from the point of view of G, the note, what is it? G, the note D is a fifth. Let's get back to that. And I can keep going. So F sharp would be a major 7. A is going to be a 9. C is going to be an 11, and E is going to be a 13. Now, this is what we call, and we looked at this in lesson 1, a vertical stretcher. Okay, this is the same scale, but just in a different order. It's spelled as an arpeggio, or, as we'll see in a second, as a chord. So this is what we call an Ionian arpeggio. The same way this was a Ionian scale. But the consequence of this is not only we have an arpeggio. In fact, in your studies so far, when it comes to major arpeggio, you studied the triad. In the case of key of G, would be GBD. You studied major 7 arpeggio, major 9 arpeggios, 7-9, 6-9. And the reason you did 6-9 is because the 13 is equal to a 6. Don't forget that. We did the entire Ionian arpeggio. But this is also a chord, because 135, as we have seen in the chart, 135 is a major chord. Let's remember that that's major. In fact, what we're doing now, we're taking basically a scale and we are harmonizing it. Harmonizing a major scale. And the word harmonizing implies that from the scale, now we're getting chords. Let me do the same thing I just did for the very first note of the scale, but I'm going to do it for starting from the second note. Now I have A stuck in thirds. So this would be C. Play a note, skip a note, sorry. Play the following one. And that's E. And then we have G. Then we have B. Then we have D. And then we have F sharp. Now, let me give it another color so we see the difference. Actually, I'm going to color all this together so you see it as one thing. That's just one thing. And I'm going to do the same for this. So you see it's one thing. If we look at the relation, if this is 1, okay? Now A is 1. What's the relation in between C and A in the key of A? And that's where, again, our chart comes back handy. So if A is the root, C is the flat 3. And I'm going to do the same process for all the notes, for all the vertical notes here. So this is a flat 3. The relation in between E and A, the interval, it's a fifth. In between G and A, this is a flat 7. In between B and A, it's a 9. In between D and A, it's an 11. And in between F sharp and A, that's a 13. Basically, what you just seen in the case of this second scale is what in the future, I mean, actually in 2 lessons from now, because that's what we're going to be doing in 2 lessons from now, is what we call a Dorian. Okay, so now we're approaching modal blank, okay, modes in general. It's going to be a minor scale, and it's going to have minor arpeggios and minor chords connected to it. And if we analyze it, you'll see that this A, so 1 flat 3 5, is minor. And that's why when we studied Dorian, we treat it as a minor scale, a minor arpeggio, and a bunch of minor chords. Let's remind ourselves that that's a minor. If I wanted to write the complete Dorian modal arpeggio, this would be a minor 13, because it's all the notes leading to a 13. I'm going to do the same thing for the third one, okay? So let's give it a different color. B, skip a note, play the following one. So you get D, you get F sharp, you get A, you get C, you get E, and you get G. So if we look at the intervals, again, considering this the root note this time, we get the interval there is a flat 3 in between B and D. The interval is a flat 3. Then we have a 5. We have a flat 7. C and B is a flat 9. I'll show it to you in a second. So we are looking at B, and here is your C, flat 2, flat 9. I wrote flat 9 because I'm looking at it from the point of view of the second octave. From E and B you have an 11, and from B and G you have a flat 13, okay, or a flat 6. As you can see, 1 flat 3 5, you are in the presence of a minor chord, okay? And if we call this Ionian, this is going to be our Dorian, this is going to be our Phrygian in terms of vertical structure. What's important to understand already at this stage is that now suddenly I have 2 minors, not just one. And as we move forward, we'll see that there is more than 1 major. And that's why I tended from the very beginning to call this an Ionian scale as opposed to a major scale, okay? Because as you will see in a second, there is more than 1 major. In fact, if we look at, let's take this one now, skip a note, play the following one, E, then you have G, then you have B, then you have D, then you have F sharp, and from F sharp we're going to A. If C is the root note, the relation in between E and C is a third, G and C is a fifth, B and C is a major 7, C and D is a 9, C and F sharp, now that's where it gets interesting, is a sharp 11, and C and A is a 13. Now you can see that these arpeggio here and these arpeggio here, they are both major. The only difference is this note. In Ionian, you have an 11th, and as we will see in the future, in Lydian, you have a sharp 11, which is a very distinctive sound. So this is also a major. And in the future, we will call this a Lydian. Let's look at this one now. In this case, we have D, F sharp, A, that's my phone, sorry for that, E, G, and from G we go to B. The relation, so if this is number 1, the relation in between D and F sharp is a major third, D and A is a fifth, D and C is a flat 7, D and E is a 9, D and G is an 11th, and D and B is a 13th. Now again, let's compare it to this particular arpeggio, 1, 3, 5, major 7, 9, 11, 13, and let's look at this, 1, 3, 5, flat 7. That's the major difference. And what this tells us is that this particular arpeggio, this particular chord, is a dominant 7. So in this case, D7, okay? Now, 6th one. Let's give it this color. E, skip F sharp, we have G. Skip A, we have B. Then we get D. Then we get F sharp. Then we get A. And from A, we get C. Intervals relation. So if E is number 1, G is a flat 3. E and B, the relation is a fifth. E and D, the relation is a flat 7. E and F sharp, the relation is a 9. E and A, the relationship is an 11th. And E and C, the relation is a flat 13. So 1 flat 3 5. Again, what kind of feminine flat 7? We are in minor. This is a minor chord. A minor chord and a minor arpeggio. When we study modes, we will call this Aeolian. So now, as you can see, you got 3 ways and a set of arpeggios that will come with that, and a set of scales that will come with that. When it comes to minor, we got the 2nd degree, Dorian, a 3rd degree, which is Phrygian, and the 6th degree, which is Aeolian. And so far, we also have 2 majors, the 1st degree, which is Ionian, and the 4th degree, which is Lydian. Let's do the last one. F sharp, skip a note, so we're stacking thirds. That's an A, that's a C, that's a E. From E we go to G, so we are here. From G we go to B, and from B we go to D. Intervals. So F sharp, F sharp, yeah, it's the root note. From F sharp to A, the interval is a flat 3. From F sharp to C, the interval is a flat 5. From F sharp to E is a flat 7. From F sharp to G is a flat 9. From F sharp to B is an 11. From F sharp to D is a flat 13. Now, 1 flat 3, flat 5, flat 7. Let's look at our charts 1 second. And 1 flat 3, flat 5, flat 7. Now, that's an half diminished chord. And half diminished. We just harmonized our scale. What that means is we started from an horizontal line, so single notes. I'm going to show it to you on the guitar in a second. But from that, we got chords. So we harmonized it. And now we can look at the complete chart, the one that hopefully you'll download and hopefully will be useful for you, which is this, which is basically what I just did, a complete version. So you have all your major scales. In this case, we did G, so G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and the relative harmonization. So G, A minor, B minor, C, D7, E minor, F sharp, half diminished. Because what's happening here, thanks to this harmonization, we know that the first chord is major, so G major, in the case of the key of G, obviously, because we're doing this in G now. A minor, B minor, C major, D7, E minor, F sharp, half diminished. So let me show you how this works on a guitar. We've done this in G, so let's do this in G. So G major. Okay? Harmonizing this, according to what we just did, kind of sounds like this. So G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D7, E minor, F sharp minor, F sharp half diminished, back to G major. So this is the harmonization of this scale. Okay? I hope it makes sense so far, but it's that easy. So if we want to create a rule out of it, so that we're not stuck in any particular key, this example in G, but this rule apply to any diatonic scale. So let's say the most common diatonic scale, C Ionian. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That is the scale, okay? So that would be, you studied this in the first 15 lessons, right? But now if I want to make chords out of it, it would be C major. So the sequence is always major, minor, minor, major, dominant 7, minor, off diminished. That sequence stays no matter what the key, right? We are harmonizing a scale. So C major, D, second note, minor, E minor, F major, G7, A minor, B half diminished, back to C major. And that's the harmonization of it. One thing you can do straight away is, for example, analyzing a song. Let's say I have a song in front of me, maybe a reggae song, and the chord progression, maybe it's kind of simple, and it just goes D minor, like I'm going to do it this way, and E minor. Okay? Let's say that this is a song, okay? And I want to have some fun soloing on top of that, okay? Well, what I want to do, first of all, is to see if these chords belong to the same diatonic key. So I'm going to look if any of these lines, so any of these keys, these are the diatonic keys, okay, contains those two chords. In this case, we were looking at D minor and E minor. So here is D minor, here is E minor. So actually the key of C contains those two chords. But what that means in practical terms for us is, well, a C major scale, a C Ionian scale, so the scales that you've studied so far, would allow you to solo freely, improvise if you want to, over this progression. That's your C Ionian. So in other words, what you got here at this point is you can analyze any chord progression of any song that you like and see, first of all, do the chords of that song, are they diatonic to any particular scale? If they are, you already know how to solo on top of that. And as you can see now, like, that's when harmony theory really becomes a dictionary and something that tells you, yeah, you can do that, and that's the scale that you should use for that, okay? In time, as we add minor arpeggios and dominant 7 arpeggios and all of that, because the arpeggios are guide tones, as we discussed in previous lesson, your soloing will become even more articulated if you want it to be, obviously. What happens instead, so let's say you're analyzing a progression, and you cannot find a particular scale in the charts that covers the entire progression. Let's say I have a song that goes D minor, E minor, F minor, and G minor, then back to, okay? D minor, E minor, F minor, G minor, okay? I have these 4 chords in the song, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what scales can I use to play on top of this, to solo on top of that. So what you want to do is go back to your charts, and for D minor, E minor, as you can see, we can use C major. But I also had F minor and G minor, and F minor and G minor are not here. Here there is F major, and here there is G7. So I'm going to look at the other keys here until I find one that has F minor and G minor. And in this case, I find that D sharp or E flat, which are the same thing, contains F minor and G minor. Let me see if there is anything else. This one contains G minor, but not F minor. So I will disregard it for the moment. No, this one doesn't have it, this one doesn't have it, doesn't have it, doesn't have it, doesn't have it, no, and no. So what I know now is that the first 2 bars of my song needs a C major scale if I want to, C Ionian scale, if I want to solo on top of that. And when the F minor comes in, I'm going to use E flat Ionian. After 15 lessons, you know Ionian scales in all keys and in 5 positions, which means that you know them all across the guitar. So what you're trying to do now is just to go from one key to another key. Here you're just going from, key of C, key of E flat, back to key of C, go back to key of E flat. You're not going across 12 different keys. So in this case, what you end up with is, say, like, let's C, F minor, and now I'm in B flat, G minor, I'm still in E flat, back to C, I'm still in, sorry for the grammatic, F minor, and I'm in B flat, I'm in the key of E flat now. Something that is important mentioning is the fact that the number of notes we decide to use to create this harmonized sequence kind of influences how this sequence spells. Let's say I'm harmonizing just using triads, okay? Just the first 3 notes of each chord. In that case, since we have 1 3 5, 1 flat 3 5, 1 flat 3 5, 1 3 5, 1 3 5, 1 flat 3 5, 1 flat 3 flat 5. This progression reads major, minor, minor, major. This reads as major. And the reason is because you're only going all the way to the 5th. You're not adding the flat 7. Hence is a major triad. Then minor, then diminished. And again, the reason, let me show it to you on the family of chords. The reason being that until we have 1 flat 3 5, 1 flat 3 flat 5 and 1 flat 3 flat 5, they're actually the same. Same thing you could say 1 3 5 for major, 1 3 5 for dominant 7. If we use 4-note chords, so if we use extended triads, now this chord sequence reads as major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant 7. Now, because we have 4 notes, 1, 3, 5, 7, we're reading this now, okay? This is a minor 7, and this is finally alpha diminished. So this if using extended triads. This is your basic triad, and pop music is just full of these things. If you look at, for example, music like R&B from the 60s, or even R&B, more modern forms of R&B, it's not unusual that you start seeing maybe chords which have colors to it. So 1 3 5 and maybe with a major 7 added to it, or 1 3 5 and maybe a 9 is added to it. Maybe less common is to add an 11, surely adding a 6 or a 13 to it. Now, the reason I can do that is because this piece of theory tells me, okay, these are the notes that I can add to a chord 1, which leads me neatly to one last concept that needs to be clarified here about this chart. As you can see here, I used numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A Ionian scale sequence would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you got to understand that that's within this concept. Okay, so a Ionian scale will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, major 7. You take those notes together, you have a Ionian scale. As you can see, when it comes to the harmonization of the chords, I'm not using anymore 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but I'm using Roman numbers, okay? This will be chord number 1, chord number 2, chord number 3, chord number 4, 5, 6, and 7. When it comes to chord progressions, we can start defining them by Roman numbers. So a progression 2-5-1 means in the key of C, would mean basically D minor, G7, C major. 1-6-2-5 would be in the key of D, for example. Like it would be 1, D major, 6, B minor, 2, E minor, 5, A7. Why do we do that? Why we start calling progressions by Roman numbers as opposed to, say, I don't know, G, E minor, D, F major or something? Because that's going to help you in transposing songs. That's one of the first application I can think of in those terms. And I'm going to show you in a minute what do I mean by that. So let's see where this information about, describing chords in Roman numerals comes in. Let's take, for example, let me think of a pop song. U2, With or Without You, big hit for them. If I remember well, off the top of my head, chords should be kind of G major, D major, E minor, C. This is a progression that, tons of songs of this. Okay? Now, let me look if in our chart there is any particular key center that covers all these chords. Just by hearing it in terms of tension resolution, it feels to me that the song wants to resolve in G. So the first key I'm going to check is actually G. Okay? So let's have a look. So G, here it is. So G is there, D7, so D is there, and since we're playing triads, that's why, now you'll understand it even better. Here, since we're only playing triads, that's funny enough, this is in G already, so that really helps. The D is treated like a major, okay, not like a D7. So we say D, then we say E minor, here is my E minor, and then we say C, and here is C. So all these chords of the progression belong to the key of G. Fair enough. Now, let me look at it from a numeral point of view. This would be a 1, 5, 6, 4 progression. Okay? Remember this number. 1, 5, 6, 4. So 1 is G, 5 is D, 6 is E minor, and 4 is C. So 1, 5, 6, 4. What happens is when you work with singers in particular, even if you're a singer yourself, and let's say that you want to cover this song, you decide that you want to play With or Without You by U2, but the original key of the song doesn't really suit you, okay? Or maybe the singer you're working with, maybe it's a female singer, so she's going to pitch it a bit higher, or maybe it's going to be pitched a bit lower. How can I transpose the song kind of relatively quickly, or without getting an headache? Let's say the singer says, no, I mean, this key of G, I don't fancy it, it's too low for me, or it's too high for me, whatever. Let's try, 2 tones up. So you can simply go to the chart and look at, 2 tones up, okay? From G, you go to key of B. Kind of weird, but fine. And now you're looking at the same Roman numbers. 1, 5, 6, 4. In the key of B, 1 is B. Then you have F sharp major, because as I say, we're only using the first 3 notes. Then you have G sharp minor, and then you have E major. B. In other words, we went from the original song and quickly transposed the song into okay, and now the singer can do a job. And I could try any key, because I'm thinking in terms of 1, 5, 6, 4 instead of thinking necessarily in the key of G. Okay, and that's where this idea of using Roman numbers really comes handy. And there are very, in music, the 1, 6, 2, 5 is a very common progression. 2-5-1 is a very common progression. 1-4-5. As you can see, I call them that way because it's independent from the key. It's a bit like saying, let's play a blues in D. And for all of you out there that play the blues, you know the 12-bar blues, you know the stretcher. So you're just transposing it in whatever is going to be the key for the particular performance. Same thing is basically happening here. There's really a lot that we can get out of just from understanding the logic behind this, okay? Embellishing chords, as I suggested, like depending on the style of music, pop music most of the time kind of relies on just triads. But let's say you have a progression like now, actually, like the one we just did. Let's say I want to start embellishing it. But now I know this is chord number 1, chord number 5, chord number 6, and chord number 4. And if we look at these charts, we'll study this. I'm not asking you to understand this necessarily now, but so that you can see the potential. Chord number 1, which is this, I know what extension I can use, what embellishments I can use. Okay, what's the upper stretcher here? Chord number 5, which is this, I also is telling me, okay, if I want, I can add a flat 7 to my triad, I can add a 9, I can add an 11, I can add a 13. Chord number 6, same thing. I know it's a minor until here, and these are the extensions I can add. And then chord number 4 is a major, and these are the extensions that I can add. So once you're familiar with that, now the same song maybe might become, maybe you want to do, a more R&B version of it. You want to cover it, but not strumming type of technique. Now this can become chord number 1. As you can see, I'm adding colors to it. Okay, and it's not a random process. So the extra notes that I'm adding to the triads are defined by that table. So for in this case, I'm doing a major 7 or a major 13, and here I was doing like a 7 or a 9 dominant chord with a 9th. In 11th, minor 11th, and major 7 with a sharp 11. Now, one very last thing I want to quickly discuss with you is during lesson 1, lesson 4, I believe lesson 7, anyway, every time we discussed a new scale position, so we started from this one, this was lesson 1, right? Among the exercises, beside the intervals, you also did exercises which were called triads and extended triads, okay? And at that time I told you, just do it, and at some point I'll explain you where is that coming from. Well, now I guess you can understand where is that coming from. Because all you're doing when you're doing those triads and extended triads in position, in each gauge, you're actually spelling the chords, that the harmonization that we just did, but in an arpeggio form. In other words, all you're doing is you're playing this sequence: major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. And when we do extended triads, what you're playing is major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, and off diminished. In other words, although we haven't done yet minor arpeggios or dominant 7 arpeggios or off diminished arpeggios, as a matter of fact, you're already playing them. So when we do them, you're going to feel already kind of familiar with it. And that's the trick. So let's take, for example, this position. And one of the exercises I asked you to do was this. Step that at the octave, okay? And of course, inverted version and all that. If you think about it, let me start from G, okay? So you see it. This is a triad of G. This is G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, back to G major. So you're creating that harmonization that I just described to you as a piece of theory. That's what's happening there. You're literally spelling the chords within that scale. You're harmonizing the scale by doing that. And when we're doing extended triads, now we're adding the major 7, we're adding the 4th note in the sequence. So the major 7 or minor 7, or according to major, minor, minor, major, dominant 7, minor, half diminished. So starting from G, you studied this. So in other words, what you're playing is G major 7, A minor 7, B minor 7, C major 7, D dominant 7, E minor, F half diminished, so F minor 7 flat 5, back to G major 7. So before we conclude, I just wanted to show you like a practical application of what we did. Let's say, for example, you have a song, the progression is, I don't know, C minor, D minor, E flat. So something like this. I'm going to actually loop it, okay? So if I look at my charts, you will find, if you look at my charts, you will find that C minor, D minor, and E flat major, they all belong to a diatonic key of B flat, which means I can use B flat Ionian over this progression if I want to solo on top of it. That's the practical application. So we started B flat. We studied Ionian in all positions. So let's say B flat, shape of G. See how it works? That's shape B flat in the shape of E. The B flat shape of D. B flat in the shape of C, B flat in the shape of A, and you're back to B flat in the shape of G. Okay, now I got my guitar mapped out in terms of, okay, B flat Ionian all over. I will not be using much arpeggios now because we haven't studied yet minor arpeggios. Otherwise, I could use minor arpeggios for C, minor arpeggios for D minor, and then major arpeggios for E flat. I'm just gonna stick to the scale for the moment because that's the level we've reached so far. And, you know, just stay on a B flat Ionian. Intervals? Those are fourths. Thirds. I hope it makes sense, and you start realizing the potential that even just this little piece of information regarding harmony and theory can provide you with. So my suggestion is like take any song that you're particularly a fan of, and see if diatonically it falls into one single scale. As I mentioned during the lesson, let's see what happens if something falls across two different scales. I'm going to use the progression we used before, so D minor, E minor, and then F minor and G minor. And let me loop it, 3, 4. this, thank you to my dictionary. So what I know is that D minor, E minor falls under the C major Ionian scale, while F minor and G minor falls into the E flat Ionian. So the first two chords I'm going to be playing C Ionian. The second two chords I'm going to switch to E flat Ionian. Let's say, this is your C major, shape of G, and then I have E flat here in the shape of A. Just for the sake of argument, I'm going to stay in the same area. That's E flat. C. E flat. I think this concludes these lessons at this stage. I know this is not the simplest of things to sink in, but I'm going to talk about these things in the future and show you further applications of it. So, don't worry if it's going to take some time. It's kind of normal. I really wish you well, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.